There's no questioning it. Proper nutrition is important if you want to achieve your fitness goals, and sometimes your diet just won't cut it. You need to supplement. If you've been into bodybuilding long enough, you would have heard a lot about supplementing with creatine. Many would even pitch it as one of the most important compounds needed for muscle growth. In this video, we will separate the facts from the fiction and give you the straightforward answer you're looking for. How different is a body with or without creatine? First off, what exactly is creatine? We can't be talking about how effective creatine is if we don't even know how it's categorized. Creatine is an amino acid. We know amino acids are proteins, but creatine is only a component and not a complete protein. Animals are able to produce the creatine they need by themselves, so it is actually natural. The human body can produce about 1 gram of creatine per day, and an average male of 150 pounds or 70 kg has a store of 120 to 140 grams of creatine, which is stored in the muscles and brain as phosphocreatine. This already hints to you that regardless of diet, there is some creatine in each of us. The only difference is the quantity present. There are numerous claims to its benefits, which include better workout performance, improved hypertrophy, and even keeping the skin young and healthy. All these sound like bargains you definitely want if you're working out. How true are these claims, and how effective is it really? To answer this question, let's look at the science behind creatine and how it works in the body. The reason why creatine is concentrated on skeletal muscles and the brain is because it can play a role in metabolism, especially in areas of the body that demand a lot of energy. A study showed that creatine monohydrate causes the body to produce more phosphocreatine, and this leads to higher adenosine triphosphate, ATP, resynthesis in the muscle. This benefits the muscle during workouts, as ATP resynthesis improves endurance. This is probably why creatine has found a central place as an energetic compound that athletes take to improve their performance. The study also shows that creatine can increase osmotic pressure in cells, leading to better water retention and cellular growth. With this evidence, the answer seems to be straightforward, that creatine is beneficial if you work out and aim for better muscle growth. But don't conclude just yet. Creatine is one of the most studied supplements and has been studied for decades, so we can actually get a lot of science-based information on this compound. The issue here is, a lot of these studies contradict themselves on certain details. To say something is effective does not mean it is the best option. A lot of other factors need to be considered too, including short-term and long-term effects of supplementing on creatine. That it works does not mean you should be using it, right? While it is established that creatine is beneficial for energy metabolism, does supplementing make a substantial impact on the body during workout? A 2012 study in the Center for Sports Science and Human Performance at the University of Greenwich revealed that regular supplementation caused significant increase in strength of participants in the study. The study, which observed the users for 12 weeks, indulged them in heavyweight training exercises, and they supplemented with 25 grams of creatine per day. It was discovered that the athletes were able to maintain a high training intensity, which resulted in better muscle growth. This is thanks to ATP regeneration, which creatine enhances, leading to a boost in recovery and increased endurance. Performance increased by as much as 14% after the 12-week period. Review of studies regarding the effects of it also showed that some research on creatine are in disagreement to its benefits. One of such was a study by Professor Jennifer Jacobi and her team, who came to the conclusion that fatigue and recovery are not affected by short-term creatine use. The issue with this study is there was no mention of resistance training as part of the tests to determine the efficacy of creatine in improving endurance. Another study showed that creatine was also not effective for elderly men that were tested for 14 weeks. There was no improvement in muscle mass or in endurance of the participants, and this time the participants were engaged in resistance training. This review pointed to the fact that not everyone responds to creatine in the same way. Some people are non-responders. Another conclusion was that regular intake was necessary for best results. Participants in the other test only supplemented 3 days in a week. Most studies are based on the use of creatine monohydrate, but there are many other forms of this amino acid with similar effects and are similarly used as synthetic creatine supplements. Besides improving endurance, creatine has been found to be beneficial to lean weight gain and better muscle morphology. However, there are suggestions that this substance could have long-term effects depending on the age, sex, and health of the user. Side effects have been cited as kidney and liver dysfunction, muscle cramps, diarrhea, high blood pressure, dizziness, and weight gain. So how safe is creatine? As I said earlier, there are insinuations that creatine has adverse health effects on users. These are nothing but insinuations, according to Jose Antonio, a lead researcher of health and human performance in Southeastern University, Florida. He examined several studies and found that there was no evidence supporting creatine as an agent of kidney dysfunction. His research review showed that concentration of creatine in urine may increase for those who were supplementing at over 10 grams per day, but it was not linked to any renal issues. It should be noted that these are not short-term studies, but a follow-up of studies since 1998. It must be remembered that creatine has been extensively studied since the 1980s, meaning that there's enough time to have substantiated the long-term effects, if there were any. We can't dismiss the place of more research in understanding its effects, but for now, we do not have any evidence of adverse health effects. Rather, we find even more benefits to creatine. The Mount Sinai Health Institution reported that preliminary studies showed that creatine reduced the levels of triglycerides in men and women. High levels of triglycerides are responsible for heart disease. This means creatine lowers the risk of heart disease. Homocysteine, which is another compound responsible for heart disease and stroke, was also lowered with creatine supplementation. Other benefits discovered were creatine anti-cancer properties, ability to reduce chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, that's a disease of the lungs, and muscular dystrophy was also reduced. A word of precaution though. There has been at least one case of an athlete developing sudden kidney disease and skeletal muscle breakdown. He had been on a 10 gram per day supplementation of creatine for 6 months. It is advised that those with underlying health conditions consult their doctors for proper guidance. More research needs to be done to understand the side effects of creatine, even though for now, none is apparent. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think. Remember to like, subscribe, and be back for my next insightful upload. For now, keep grinding.